Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about Kalidou Koulibaly. And of course, if we're going to talk in depth about Manchester City's potential new centre-back signing, we need an expert guest. So I've got Andrew Cesare. Sorry, mate. I've absolutely butchered your surname despite attempting it several times off camera. But Andrew is from ESPN and he's here today to impart his wisdom on Kalidou Koulibaly. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on. And how are you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. And once again, sorry about butchering your surname. I mean, I've got a surname as well that everyone butchers, so it's totally fine. So we're all in the same world anyway. At least it's a lot cooler than mine anyway. But Andrew, basically today we're going to try and go through Koulibaly because City fans obviously want to know an awful lot about this guy at the moment because obviously he's linked and he's touted as the potential solution to Manchester City's defensive problems, especially given the game we don't talk about a couple of weeks ago, which was absolutely terrible. So hopefully this guy could be the solution. But before we get into his strengths and his weaknesses and all that kind of stuff, I'd like to ask basically, why now? So why are Napoli looking to move on one of their biggest assets at the moment? Because obviously he's been there for a fair bit of time now. And obviously he's pretty well liked there, I presume. Is that a fair presumption?
Absolutely, yeah, he's a hero there. But I think that is the sort of problem is that basically they've had the same kind of core group of players who kind of moved on together. So their team, let's say 2017, 2018 was a young-ish team, and now all of a sudden those same players are still here, so they're no longer a young team. So I think they're just trying to move on a few players. So they've moved on. They've already moved on a couple. And basically, I think that's what they're just trying to get the age down, and maybe this is their last chance to sort of cash in on him, because he's not had his best season. He's not had a terrible season, but there is a sign that under this system that it's not really because they've obviously got a new manager and stuff like that. So I think they're just trying. They are at the moment just trying to rejuvenate the squad, and it's like a bit of a process. And I'm just thinking get a decent bid for Koulibaly, and this is the right time.
So in terms of his form then, because obviously that's the question mark that a lot of people currently have about this guy, especially when you consider that based against his age. And it's not an unfair question, really. I would like to basically understand though his form in a wider context of Napoli, because is it fair to say, once again, that Napoli haven't been the Napoli that people would associate as Europe's one of the top sides, especially this season? And if that is the case, and it might not be the case, feel free to correct me. If that is the case, what's gone on at Napoli, and why maybe aren't they quite challenging at the highest, at the top of Serie A this season?
Well, I mean, everything's gone wrong this season, to be honest. I mean, Ancelotti started the season as as manager, and they were expected to. They'd finished last two seasons second, and miles ahead of third. There was real competition. And this season was just the first two games of the season was 4-3 win and a 4-3 defeat, and then it just kind of just completely spiraled out of control. And in Italy, it's quite common that if you have a really bad run of form, the players go into sort of a week-long retreat, maybe the training ground where they just kind of just stay there together, and it's quite a common reaction to a really bad run of form. And Napoli's owner tried to sort of get that to happen with the players. And they refused. They literally went on mutiny. There was fines, totaling over millions of euros, which ultimately resulted in Ancelotti being sacked and replaced by Gattuso. So what that tells you is the fact that everyone had a bad season really at Napoli. So you can't really judge any of the players off this season, especially someone at his unbelievable level. It picked up towards the end, like they all did, because obviously they ended up winning the cup, and he improved like everyone else did towards the end. But it is really difficult to sort of make a judgment on him as where he is based on this season.
How has the style of football been under Gattuso though? Because has it been similar to what essentially most people would associate with Napoli? Because I'll be honest, I haven't paid full attention. You see the odd game on TV every now and then in the Champions League, but largely, I mean, City had a couple of epic games genuinely against Napoli a few years back, Sarri versus Guardiola, and they were genuinely just fantastic. It's like what you describe football as, go watch football. This was it. It was that kind of level of football. Yeah, and obviously Koulibaly was a big part of that. I mean, is there anything left of that for Napoli these days, or the different proposition altogether?
Well, they're more about counter-attacking now under Gattuso, and he's a big part of that counter-attacking because his ability to bring the ball forward, his ability to intercept and start these counter-attacks. One thing I will say about him is that when he first signed for Napoli, he was he didn't really show his best under Benitez, and obviously we know that Benitez is not exactly the most adventurous kind of manager, and he was linked at the time with I believe Norwich, like Southampton recently said that they could have signed him and they couldn't quite agree a deal like €9 million or something.
They've got some good scouts, haven't they, Southampton? They really have, honestly. We should just follow their signings. That's any major clubs just look at they're going for. But anyway, can't go for it.
But yeah, no. And then Sadi came in and just revolutionised it. And obviously, Sadi is as much as I admire his football, it's fantastic. Obviously, Pep is Guardiola is probably obviously a level above. So you think about what he could do with someone like who he's like Sadi literally brought Koulibaly onto the next level. In that system, that's the best that he's probably produced. And you think that would be a bonus. That's a positive for City fans. I think that if that's what Sadi could do with him, I think that that improvement under someone like Mauricio Sarri is the main thing that I would look at from a City point of view to think Guardiola could really get something out, get even more out of him. Because that is the style he thrives in.
Yeah. So in terms of the main question mark City fans are having about him really is his age. I counted that personally by saying he's literally a week older than Kevin De Bruyne, and no one would turn their nose up at Kevin De Bruyne. And I guess these days as well, I would also say that centre-backs can play to their early mid-30s with absolutely no problem, because it's almost like the physicality of the game's changed a lot, and they're all a lot more professional and kind of stuff. But still, he's not young. I think we'd all probably accept that. He's 29 at the moment. We've kind of touched on it already. How much do you think his current form, or I guess his lack of form, is to do with his age? Is it as simple as that in your personal opinion? He's also had a mild injury this season, I think, and he's usually pretty reliable from what I can recall. Is there any correlation with that? Is it a fair thing to say? Or, be totally honest if you think, is it an age thing or do you think it's a system thing?
No, I definitely think that I get the impression that I look at, obviously, I don't follow City week in, week out. But my sort of thing is I look at someone like David Silva, for example, or even like Aguero, and I really believe that there's a strong argument they produced their best football under Guardiola, and it's
very fair.
They were not young when he arrived, and I think Koulibaly. I think there's obviously the difference between your best player turning 29 and signing someone at 29. I think that's where the kind of concern comes in. But ultimately, where he is he better than what City have? And I think that I'd probably say that he is, because I think he is one of the best centre backs in the world, and I think that I guess the problem that City would have is that sometimes you wonder whether is the system in place to sort of protect the lack of quality of centre backs, or is it sort of is there really a system to allow the centre backs to thrive? And I think that what I think City have kind of got away maybe the last few years of not having top quality centre backs because of the system was put there to sort of protect them. And I think that now that someone like Fernandinho maybe can't produce what he could, maybe now that he's had to go back into centre back for a bit, someone like Koulibaly, that kind of level of quality and that leadership, which obviously has been lacking, is where I think that he will help improve that defence. So
is it fair to say you still think that quality's there? I know it's quite a simple question, but you personally believe the quality's there. And also, how good actually has he been prior to this season? Genuinely, how high do you rate him personally?
Well, I think you've got to take into account that when you don't play for one of the absolute best teams in the world as a defender, you're probably defending a lot more. So I feel as though that's one of. So he's had to really dig in and do a lot of work, and he's very fast, and he's the quality defenders alongside him are not as sort of fast. And there's been a few times where the Napoli signed Kostas Manolas from Roma, someone who's good centre back. It was supposed to be this dynamic, really good centre back duo. But there's been a few times where Koulibaly's had to sort of bail him out, where he's been caught out of position, and it's that awareness that Koulibaly has of the people around him, their weaknesses, and he kind of I feel as though he's aware that he's not going to win that header, so I'll get myself in position so that when you miss, that kind of thing. And I think that's that kind of leadership, that kind of responsibility. I think he has got top quality, don't get me wrong, but I think what his main thing that he'll add is that sense of responsibility and leadership.
Okay, so is that one of his big strengths? Basically, is he known for being a proper good leader? Because that's something Manchester City really probably have missed. I mean, I'm not expecting it to come in to be Vincent Kompany, because that's a ridiculous ask for anyone to step into those kind of shoes. But largely, is that I see his English is good as well, from what I can tell. Actually, I think he can speak English. So largely is his leadership. And does he start the same pace as well? Because obviously he's getting a little bit older. Has he still got the pace he had a couple of years ago?
I mean, this season he's shown pace at times. He's shown his ability to sort of, yeah, basically, yeah, is the answer to that question.
Sometimes the answer is yes, is fine. You're like,
the Kompany's quite a good comparison, actually. I mean, like you say, I mean, obviously, like especially from an emotional level for like City fans, I'm sure that like you can't compare anyone to Kompany, but there are similarities in the way that like he's in the right place. He's got great positional sense, and he's great at getting the ball, starting attacks from the back. I think that's what he'll bring. Yeah.
In terms of weaknesses, I mean, is there any flaws to his game that particularly stand out? Anything that City fans should be aware of if Manchester City do complete this transfer?
Well, he's obviously very strong and he's very good at like muscling people off the ball. But however, like I mean, you think that he's very good in the air. However, like I was quite surprised to read that like his actual like stats. Obviously, stats quite misleading, but he's quite low in terms of like aerial duels like won, which does surprise me. I do wonder whether like you think that like having a big imposing centre back like his ability in the air is one of the main positive attributes, but it's not quite as strong as you necessarily would think. However, he obviously like I think that he's very rarely caught in that position at Napoli. So imagine at City where like the defending's even less.
Yeah,
I do think that he's the kind of player who would maybe like make sure that wouldn't happen. But the main concern is that he does have these moments of just like, I mean, the beginning of this season, just the beginning of last season, sorry, he like Napoli played Juventus and they were 3-0 down, brought it back to 3-3, and in the last minute, he inexplicably like deflected all by himself. He deflected a free kick into his own net, top corner.
Well, that's a Vintage Kompany thing to do as well. Vinny did that a few times, unfortunately. He scored one of the best own goals I've ever seen, where he kind of sliced it over. I'm not trying to obviously say that's not a concern, but I mean, maybe the point I'm trying to make is it does happen sometimes.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, but yeah, I mean, he's one of these with no like obvious flaws. But I'd say that the fact that like maybe concentration levels, maybe just moments of just I don't know, just panic or whatever. But like he just. He also the season 2018 when Napoli like famously nearly won the title, like he got the winner in the last minute against Juventus away, which made everyone think the title was back on. Very next game he gets sent off after 6 minutes and they end up losing 3-0, which cost him the title. So he's kind of like just sometimes has these just difficult moments where like I think maybe it's because he's so used to being sort of like playing well and being imposing that he just struggles to deal with like being, if he's caught out of position, he's not really sure, and it's just such an alien concept to him.
Fingers crossed. From a City fan perspective, if he does come adapt to the Premier League, how do you think he's suited to the game? Obviously, because I mean, I think that the perception I don't. If this is this correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the perception of Serie A for years has been like slow and tactical. I don't think that's quite the same as it used anymore. No. I feel like that's changed. And how does football in Serie A compare to football in the Premier League? And do you think he'll potentially adapt over here if he does come?
Absolutely. I mean, like obviously, to give you an example, I mean, this is only the second time in the history of Serie A 2 players in the same season score 30 goals. To give you an example of how it's sort of moving into a more attacking direction, and that's getting more and more. So I think there is this obviously like the old school defenders in Italy are criticising the fact that defending's been been killed as an art. Pep Guardiola actually getting a lot of the blame for that. That's what they're saying. But he's someone who I think that he can deal with the best. Like so last season when they played PSG in the group stage, and he really handled Mbappe well. Like he made sure that like the pace was never a problem. He was always in the right place. He muscled off. One-on-one situation, he's very difficult for someone to sort of muscle him off the ball because he is stronger than basically anyone's going to come across.
I forgot to ask actually. What's his defensive style? Is he because we've got different extremes. We've got Otamendi who just loves to be on the floor, and jumping in, and we've City been linked to Diego Carlos as well. And even though he won the obviously Europa League, he's had an interesting last 3 games. He's been his arse has spent more time on the floor than his feet. So basically, how does Koulibaly? How does he defend essentially? What is his style of defensive? Like what's his approach basically?
Well, he very rarely goes to ground. Like he doesn't very rarely needs to go to ground. His upper body is his main attribute to muscle people off the ball. So he would get himself in a position where basically you can't just run past him and you can't get around him because he's so strong. He uses his upper body very, very well. With Napoli, he tends to play on the sort of left of when they got back two or back three. However, obviously, I've seen a City with like Laporte being like the other sort of.
Can he do that? Do you think?
Well, I think that I think he can play on the other. I think he will be able to play on the other side, and I especially think that I'd be intrigued to see what Guardiola can get out of him because, like I said, like Sarri in his style was able to get more out of him than Benitez, which surprises me. You think Benitez is the kind of player who can get more out of centre backs. So I just wonder whether what he would learn under someone like Guardiola. I think he's at that stage where he's football wise he's maybe towards the end of his career, but he's still at a position where he can certainly learn. And obviously, I think he would learn. I think that he would definitely be able to improve a lot under Guardiola. I think that'd be interesting to see.
Okay, well, Andrew, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating. If you don't mind me asking, where can people find you online and all that kind of stuff? So,
just obviously ESPN. But my Twitter is Andrew Cesare. That's Andrew Cesare.
Cesare, there we go. I just wanted you to say it so I didn't butcher it again. Guys, there'll be a link in the description below to go follow Andrew because he's a top guy. And also part Mancunian. I'm right, half Mancunian?
I am from Manchester, yeah.
I recognise that Manchester draw straight away. Where else in Manchester from? Blakely. Nice. Well, thank you for coming on, mate. It's been really, really appreciated. And I'll hit you up again if City are linked to any more Serie A players, if you don't mind. It's been wonderful. Guys, big round of applause to Andrew in the comments, if you don't mind. Let us know what you make of this potential transfer down in the comments below. I'm sure you've all made your mind up either way, but hopefully Andrew's words will either be reassuring or maybe the opposite, we'll see. Guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and we'll see you soon for another video.